The evening breeze swept gently through the towering pine trees surrounding the Shadow Fang Pack, carrying with it the scent of fresh rain and blooming wildflowers. The pack house buzzed with excitement as warriors returned from patrol and families gathered for dinner. Laughter echoed through the halls, but none of it reached Lisa's heart. For the first time in years, she felt genuinely happy. Only a week remained before she and David would officially announce their mating ceremony before the entire pack. Everyone believed they were the perfect couple. David was the respected beta of Shadow Fang Pack, admired for his strength and leadership. Lisa was known for her kindness, intelligence, and unwavering loyalty. Together they seemed destined to lead the pack one day. Lisa smiled as she carefully arranged David's favorite meal inside a woven basket. She had spent the afternoon preparing every dish herself, hoping to surprise him after his training session. "He'll love this," she whispered to herself. She placed a small bouquet of white lilies beside the basket. David had once told her they reminded him of her gentle spirit. Thinking about that memory made her cheeks warm with happiness. Without wasting another moment, Lisa left her cottage and walked toward David's private cabin near the eastern forest. The sun was beginning to disappear behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and crimson. Birds sang their final songs before nightfall, while wolves howled softly in the distance. Everything felt peaceful, too peaceful. As Lisa approached the cabin, she noticed something unusual. The front door was slightly open. David never left it that way. She frowned. "Maybe he's expecting me," she thought. Before she could step inside, a woman's laughter drifted through the doorway. Lisa stopped walking. Her smile slowly faded. She listened carefully. Another laugh. Then David's voice. Soft, affectionate, completely unlike the serious tone he used with everyone else. Confused, Lisa moved closer. She didn't want to invade his privacy, but something deep inside her chest urged her to look. With trembling hands, she gently pushed the door open just enough to see inside. The basket slipped from her fingers. The wooden bowl shattered across the floor. David stood in the middle of the room. His arms were wrapped tightly around another woman. His lips were pressed against hers. Lisa's heartbeat stopped. Her entire body refused to move. She stared at them, praying her eyes were playing tricks on her. Then the woman turned her face. Lisa's world collapsed. It was her younger sister, Emily. The same sister she had protected since childhood. The same sister she had comforted after every heartbreak. The same sister who had thanked Lisa countless times for always being there. Now Emily stood in Lisa's place. David gently brushed Emily's hair behind her ear before smiling. "I've been waiting for this," he said. Emily giggled. "What about Lisa?" she asked. David laughed without the slightest hint of guilt. "Lisa?" he repeated. "She was useful while I needed everyone's trust. Once I become Alpha, she'll mean nothing to me." Emily smiled. "So, you'll reject her?" David nodded confidently, without hesitation. Lisa felt something inside her break. Every promise, every kiss, every dream they had built together, every word David had ever spoken, it had all been a lie. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. She wanted to scream. She wanted to demand an explanation. She wanted to ask why. Instead, she remained frozen. Emily wrapped her arms around David again. "She'll never see this coming." David chuckled. "Even if she does, what can she do? She's too loyal to leave." Lisa lowered her head. For years, she had believed loyalty could overcome anything. Tonight, she realized loyalty meant nothing to someone without honor. She quietly stepped backward before either of them noticed her. The broken basket remained on the floor. Neither David nor Emily bothered to check where the sound had come from. They were too busy planning a future built on betrayal. Lisa turned away. One slow step became another. Soon she was walking through the quiet forest, tears blurring her vision. She had no destination, no plan. Only a heart shattered into countless pieces. She whispered to herself through trembling lips, "If love can be stolen this easily, then perhaps it was never mine to begin with." The cold night air wrapped around her like a lonely embrace as she disappeared deeper into the forest. She had no idea that this single decision would change her destiny forever. Far beyond the borders of Shadow Fang Pack, the most powerful Alpha King in the Werewolf Kingdoms suddenly stopped in the middle of a royal council meeting. His wolf growled. His golden eyes flashed. For the first time in years, he had sensed the presence of his true mate, and she was crying. Lisa walked without knowing where she was going. The deeper she ventured into the forest, the quieter everything became. The cheerful sounds from Shadow Fang Pack disappeared behind her, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the distant cries of night birds. She finally stopped beside a small stream. The clear water reflected her tear-stained face. She barely recognized the woman staring back at her. "Was I really that blind?" she whispered. She remembered every promise David had made, every time he had held her hand and sworn they would spend the rest of their lives together, every dream they had built together. Now they meant nothing. Lisa wiped away her tears, but they refused to stop. "I gave you everything, David." Her voice broke. "And you gave my place to my own sister." She sank onto a large rock and buried her face in her hands. For the first time since losing her parents years ago, she felt completely alone. Back at David's cabin, Emily laughed as she adjusted her dress. "I should go before someone sees me." David smiled confidently. "No one will." Emily walked toward the door. The moment she stepped outside, she froze. The basket of food lay scattered across the ground. The soup had spilled into the dirt. The white lilies were crushed beneath broken pieces of the bowl. Face turned pale. "David!" He stepped outside. His smile disappeared instantly. He recognized the basket. Lisa had woven it herself. David slowly looked around. There was no sign of her, only a trail of footprints leading away from the cabin. Emily grabbed his arm. "Do you think?" David's heartbeat quickened. She was here. The confidence on his face vanished. "When?" "Before we heard the bowl break." Emily swallowed nervously. "She saw us." Neither of them spoke for several seconds. David suddenly rushed down the path. "Lisa!" Only silence answered him. He searched around the cabin, behind the trees, near the stream. For the first time that night, fear settled in his heart. Lisa remained beside the stream until the moon climbed high into the sky. She reached into the small bag hanging from her shoulder. Inside were only a few coins, a family photograph, and the silver necklace her mother had given her before she died. Lisa held the necklace tightly. "I don't know where I'm going," she whispered, "but I can't stay." Returning to Shadow Fang Pack would mean facing David and Emily every day. She couldn't live with that pain. Not anymore. She stood up and looked toward the road leading beyond the pack's territory. She had never traveled alone before. The outside world frightened her, but staying frightened her even more. Taking a deep breath, she stepped across the boundary marker that separated Shadow Fang Pack from the rest of the Werewolf Kingdoms. She didn't look back, not once. Hours later, David returned to the pack house. His clothes were covered in dust from searching. The guards immediately noticed his worried expression. "Beta David, is everything all right? Have you seen Lisa?" The guards shook their heads. David clenched his fists. He hurried to Lisa's cottage. The lights were off. He pushed the door open. The house was empty. Her favorite shawl was gone. So was the small travel bag she always kept beneath her bed. David's heart sank. "She left," he whispered. Emily arrived moments later. "Did you find her?" David stared at the empty room. "No," he said. Emily forced a calm expression. "Maybe she'll come back after she cools down," she offered. David slowly shook his head. "You don't know Lisa," he replied. "When she decides something, she never changes her mind." For the first time since betraying her, he realized he might have lost her forever. Far away, beyond the borders of Shadow Fang Pack, a lone rider crossed the northern hills beneath the moonlight. He wore a long black cloak embroidered with a golden wolf crest. The soldiers riding behind him kept a respectful distance. None dared ride beside their king unless invited. King Adrian Blackwood suddenly pulled on the reins of his horse. His wolf stirred uneasily. A strange sadness washed over him. It wasn't his own. It came from somewhere beyond the horizon. He closed his eyes for a brief moment. His wolf spoke in a low, certain voice. "She's out there." Adrian opened his eyes and looked toward the southern road. He didn't know her name. He had never seen her face. But for reasons he couldn't explain, his heart urged him to find her before it was too late. The first rays of sunlight stretched across the sky as Lisa continued walking along the narrow forest road. She had been awake all night, and every step made her legs feel heavier. She had never imagined she would leave Shadow Fang Pack this way. Not as a bride, not as someone's Luna, but as a woman with a broken heart and nowhere to call home. The cool morning breeze brushed against her face, yet it did little to ease the ache inside her chest. She stopped beside a large oak tree and reached into her travel bag. Only a few silver coins remained. It wasn't enough to last more than a few days. Lisa sighed. "I'll find work," she told herself. No matter what it takes. She refused to return to the life she had left behind. Not after what David had done. Not after Emily's betrayal. With renewed determination, she continued down the road. Back at Shadow Fang Pack, David hadn't slept. He stood outside Lisa's empty cottage, staring at the locked door. His closest friend, Ryan, approached quietly. "You've been here since dawn." David nodded. "I thought she'd come back." Ryan frowned. "What happened between you two?" David remained silent. How could he admit the truth? How could he tell anyone that Lisa had caught him in another woman's arms? Ryan placed a hand on his shoulder. "If she's gone, go after her. I don't know where she went. Then find her." David lowered his head. For the first time, he realized that finding someone who no longer wanted to be found was far more difficult than winning any battle. Meanwhile, Emily sat inside her room, unable to hide her smile. She believed everything had gone according to plan. With Lisa gone, nothing stood between her and David. Soon everyone in the pack would accept her as his future Luna. She looked into the mirror and adjusted her hair. "This is how it was always meant to be," she whispered. A sudden knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Her mother entered the room. "Have you seen your sister?" Emily forced a worried expression. Emily pretended to be shocked. "Oh no, I hope she's all right." Their mother sighed deeply. "I've searched everywhere." Emily gently held her mother's hand. "She probably just needs some time alone." Her mother nodded, unaware that the daughter standing before her already knew exactly why Lisa had left. By midday, Lisa reached a small village that sat between several pack territories. It was the first place she had ever visited outside her own pack. Merchants lined the streets, selling fresh bread, fruit, handmade clothing, and tools. Children laughed as they chased one another through the marketplace. For a brief moment, Lisa forgot her pain. No one here knew who she was. No one whispered about her. No one looked at her with pity. She could finally breathe. As she walked past a bakery, The smell of fresh bread made her stomach growl. She realized she hadn't eaten since the previous afternoon. Lisa counted the coins in her hand. She hesitated. If she spent them now, she would have even less for tomorrow. Just then, an elderly woman standing behind a fruit stall noticed her. "You look exhausted, dear." Lisa offered a polite smile. "I'm all right." The woman shook her head. "No, you're not." She picked up 2 warm bread rolls and an apple, before placing them in Lisa's hands. "Eat." Lisa immediately tried to return them. "I don't have enough money." The woman smiled kindly. "I wasn't asking you to buy them." Lisa's eyes filled with tears. After everything she had experienced the night before, she hadn't expected kindness from a complete stranger. "Thank you." "Sometimes," the old woman said softly, "the people who share your blood hurt you the most. But don't let them convince you that everyone is the same." Lisa lowered her head. "I'll remember that." At that same moment, several miles away, a royal carriage rolled along the northern highway. Inside sat King Adrian Blackwood. He had spent the entire morning inspecting villages under his protection. Normally, he remained focused on his duties. Today, however, his thoughts kept drifting toward the strange feeling that had unsettled him the night before. His wolf had been unusually restless, almost impatient. Marcus, who rode beside the carriage, noticed Adrian's silence. "You've hardly spoken all day." Adrian looked out the window. "I can't explain it." Marcus smiled. "Still thinking about that feeling?" Adrian nodded. "It hasn't disappeared. It feels closer." Before Marcus could reply, the carriage slowed. One of the royal guards rode forward. "Your Majesty, there's a village market ahead." Adrian gave a slight nod. "We'll stop there for a short rest." Neither the king nor Lisa knew that they had arrived in the same village. Only a few streets separated them. And before the day was over, their paths would cross for the very first time. Lisa thanked the elderly woman once again before finding a quiet bench beneath a large tree at the edge of the marketplace. She slowly ate the warm bread. It was the first meal she had tasted since leaving Shadow Fang Pack. Although it was simple, it reminded her that kindness still existed in the world. Perhaps not everyone would betray her. Perhaps there was still hope. After finishing her meal, she stood and walked through the busy streets, hoping to find a place where she could earn enough money to survive. She stopped in front of a small tailor's shop. A middle-aged man was struggling to carry several rolls of expensive fabric inside. Without thinking, Lisa hurried over. "Let me help you." The man looked surprised. "You don't have to." "I don't mind." Together they carried the heavy fabric into the shop. The man smiled gratefully. Most people simply walked past. Lisa smiled politely. "I know what it feels like to need help." The tailor studied her for a moment. "You aren't from this village, are you?" Lisa shook her head. "I left home this morning." The tailor noticed the sadness in her eyes, but chose not to ask questions. "If you're looking for work, I could use an extra pair of hands for a few days." Lisa's face brightened. "Really? It's only temporary, but I'll pay fairly." Relief washed over her. "Thank you. I truly appreciate it." The tailor introduced himself as Mr. Henry. He showed Lisa how to organize the fabrics, arrange finished clothes, and greet customers. Although she had never worked in a tailor's shop before, she learned quickly. By afternoon, several customers complimented her politeness. Mr. Henry nodded with satisfaction. "You learned fast." Lisa smiled. "I've always believed that if something is worth doing, it's worth doing well." The old tailor chuckled. "I wish every worker had your attitude." For the first time since the previous night, Lisa genuinely smiled. It wasn't because the pain had disappeared. It was because she had finally taken the first step toward rebuilding her life. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, David's search continued. He rode his horse from one village to another, asking every merchant, traveler, and guard the same question. "Have you seen a young woman named Lisa?" Most people shook their heads. Some had never heard her name. Others simply wished him luck. As the hours passed, David's confidence slowly faded. Ryan finally rode beside him. "We've searched 3 villages. We'll search 30 if we have to." Ryan sighed. "David, you should have thought about all this before betraying her." David remained silent. There was no excuse, no explanation, no lie that could erase what Lisa had seen with her own eyes. For the first time in his life, he had become. Back inside the tailor shop, Mr. Henry handed Lisa a small pouch. "Here." Lisa looked confused. "What's this?" "Your payment for today." She quickly shook her head. "I've only worked a few hours." "And you earned every coin." Lisa slowly accepted the pouch. It wasn't a fortune, but it was the first money she had earned on her own. She held it tightly. It represented something far more valuable than silver. It represented a new beginning. As she prepared to leave, Mr. Henry stopped her. "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" Lisa hesitated. "Not yet." The tailor thought for a moment. "My sister owns a small inn across the street. I'll speak with her. I'm sure she'll let you stay for a reasonable price." Lisa's eyes filled with gratitude. "You've already done so much for me." He smiled warmly. "One day, when someone else needs help, you'll do the same." Lisa nodded. "I promise." At that very moment, several royal soldiers entered the marketplace. Their polished armor immediately caught everyone's attention. Villagers stepped aside respectfully as they cleared the road. Moments later, a magnificent black carriage rolled into the square. Children gasped in amazement. Merchants lowered their heads. Whispers spread through the crowd. "The Alpha King, His Majesty is here. I've never seen him this close before." Lisa looked toward the crowd, curious. She had heard stories about the Alpha King all her life. Others called him ruthless. Many believed he had never lost a battle. She had never expected to see him in person. The carriage came to a gentle stop. A royal guard stepped forward and opened the door. A tall man dressed in a black coat embroidered with gold stepped onto the street. His posture was calm, his expression unreadable. The entire marketplace fell silent. King Adrian Blackwood slowly surveyed the village. His golden eyes moved across the crowd, until they stopped. For a brief second, his gaze met Lisa's. Neither of them spoke. Neither understood why time suddenly seemed to stand still. Lisa quickly lowered her eyes out of respect. She assumed the king had merely glanced in her direction. But Adrian remained still. His wolf had gone completely silent. Then a single word echoed inside his mind. "Mate." Adrian frowned almost imperceptibly. After all these years, after countless false hopes, could fate truly have brought her to him in the middle of an ordinary village market? Lisa, unaware of the storm that had just begun, quietly turned and walked toward the small inn across the street. She had no idea. The Alpha King had just found the woman he had been searching for his entire life. Lisa adjusted the strap of her small travel bag and walked toward the inn across the street. She could still feel the presence of the Alpha King behind her, but she never looked back. Kings belonged in palaces. Women like her did not. After everything she had been through, the last thing she wanted was attention. She only wanted a quiet place to rest and decide what to do with her life. The wooden sign above the building read, "The Golden Oak Inn." Lisa gently pushed the door open. A cheerful woman in her late 40s stood behind the counter, arranging a few ledgers. She looked up and smiled. "You must be the young lady my brother told me about." Lisa smiled politely. "Henry sent me." The woman nodded. He said you helped him all day. My name is Martha. I'm Lisa. Martha walked around the counter and handed Lisa a small key. The room upstairs is simple, but it's clean. You can stay as long as you need. Lisa quickly reached for the small pouch of coins she had earned. I'd like to pay. Martha smiled and gently pushed Lisa's hand back. My brother already paid for tonight. Lisa's eyes widened. He did? He said you've had a difficult day. Lisa lowered her head. I don't know how to thank both of you. Martha smiled warmly. Sometimes the greatest kindness we can offer someone is making them feel they aren't alone. Those words touched Lisa more deeply than Martha could have imagined. For the first time since leaving Shadow Fang Pack, she felt safe. Outside, the marketplace slowly returned to normal after the Alpha King's arrival. King Adrian remained standing beside his carriage. His eyes never left the inn where Lisa had entered. Marcus noticed immediately. Adrian didn't answer. Marcus followed his gaze. Is it her? Adrian nodded once. My wolf has never been this certain. Marcus smiled. Then why not go to her? Adrian remained silent for a long moment. Finally he answered. Because she's carrying enough pain already. Marcus looked confused. You could tell that from one glance? Adrian slowly looked away. It wasn't her eyes. It was her scent. Wolves cannot hide sorrow from their mates. Marcus folded his arms. So what's your plan? Adrian climbed back into the carriage. We're staying in this village tonight. Marcus couldn't hide his smile. The council in the capital won't be pleased. They can wait. For the first time in years, something was more important than politics. Lisa entered her small room and quietly closed the door behind her. The room contained only a bed, a chair, a wooden table, and a tiny window overlooking the marketplace. It wasn't luxurious, but to Lisa, it felt peaceful. She placed her travel bag on the table and removed the framed photograph of her parents. Smiling sadly, she sat on the edge of the bed. I wish you were here. So much has happened. She gently traced her mother's face with her finger. You always told me that the truth reveals itself with time. I guess you were right. If I hadn't gone to David's cabin, I would have married someone who never loved me. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks, not because she missed David, but because she mourned the future she had imagined. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. She quickly wiped her face. Come in. Martha entered, carrying a tray with hot soup and tea. I thought you might be hungry. Lisa immediately stood. You didn't have to. I wanted to. She placed the tray on the table. You remind me of my daughter. Lisa looked surprised. You have a daughter? Sadly. I did. She married and moved far away. I only see her once every few years. Lisa nodded. I'm sorry. Martha gently squeezed Lisa's shoulder. Life has a funny way of taking people away and bringing new ones into our lives. Lisa smiled faintly. I hope you're right. I know I am. At the same time, David finally arrived at the same village. His horse was exhausted. So was he. He looked around the busy streets with tired eyes. Let's search here, he told Ryan. If she came this way, someone must have seen her. The two men separated and began asking merchants and travelers. After several minutes, David approached the village bakery. The elderly woman who had given Lisa bread earlier recognized him immediately. Excuse me, David asked politely. I'm searching for someone. The woman looked at him carefully. A young woman with long dark hair? Hope flashed across David's face. You've seen her? I have. When? This morning. David stepped closer. Where did she go? The woman remained silent. Instead, she asked a question of her own. Are you the man who broke her heart? David's expression changed. He couldn't answer. His silence told the old woman everything she needed to know. She sighed deeply. Young man, some mistakes are easy to forgive, but betrayal leaves scars that never truly disappear. David lowered his eyes. I know. I just want the chance to apologize. The old woman studied him for a moment. Then she slowly pointed toward the inn across the square. She went there. David's heart raced. Without another word, he hurried across the street, unaware that at that very moment, the Alpha King was also walking toward the same inn. Their paths were about to collide. David hurried across the marketplace, his eyes fixed on the entrance of the Golden Oak Inn. He pushed the door open without hesitation. The small bell above the door rang loudly. Martha looked up from the counter. Welcome, she said. David walked straight toward her. I'm looking for someone, he said. A young woman named Lisa. Martha immediately recognized the pain in his voice. You know her? She asked. David nodded. She's someone very important to me. Martha remained calm. Important enough to make her cry? David's face stiffened. He realized the elderly woman at the bakery must have spoken to her. I made a mistake. I know that. I only want to see her. Martha folded her arms. I'm afraid that's not my decision. David glanced toward the staircase. I'll speak to her myself. Before he could take another step, Martha's voice became firm. You'll stay exactly where you are. David stopped. I won't allow anyone to disturb my guests. Ryan quietly entered the inn behind David. He leaned closer and whispered, Don't force this. If Lisa wants to see you, she will. David slowly lowered his head. For the first time, he understood what it felt like to have no control over the situation. Upstairs, Lisa had just finished eating when she heard raised voices downstairs. She walked toward the window. From there she could see part of the entrance. The moment she spotted David standing inside the inn, her heart skipped. She quickly stepped away from the window. No. How did he find me? Her breathing became uneven. She had traveled for hours. She believed she had left him behind. Yet there he was, still chasing her. A gentle knock came at the door. Lisa. It was Martha. I'm sorry, Martha said softly. That young man downstairs says he knows you. Lisa closed her eyes. He does. Do you want to see him? Without hesitation, Lisa shook her head. No. Please tell him to leave. Martha smiled kindly. You don't owe anyone your time. I'll handle it. Lisa nodded gratefully. Thank you. Back downstairs, Martha returned to the counter. David immediately looked at her. Can I see her? Martha answered honestly. I asked. And? She said no. Those two words struck David harder than any punch. He stared at the floor. So, she really hates me now. Martha looked at him with calm eyes. Hate isn't what I saw. What I saw was someone deeply hurt. David closed his eyes. He couldn't blame Lisa. Not after everything he had done. Ryan gently placed a hand on his shoulder. We should go. David didn't move. I just wanted her to know. I'm sorry. Martha spoke quietly. If your apology is sincere, then prove it with your actions, not your words. David nodded slowly. Then, with one last look toward the staircase, he turned and walked out of the inn. Outside, King Adrian was approaching the inn with Marcus. They reached the entrance. David stepped out. The two men stopped only a few feet apart. David immediately recognized the royal crest on Adrian's coat. He lowered his head respectfully. Your Majesty. Adrian acknowledged him with a slight nod. As they passed one another, Adrian's wolf suddenly growled. A low, warning growl. Marcus heard it too. He looked back at David. What was that? Adrian continued walking. I don't know. But deep inside, his wolf already knew. It had sensed David's scent lingering on Lisa, not as a mate, but as the man who had caused her pain. Inside the inn, Adrian entered quietly. Unlike David, he made no demands. He simply approached the counter. Martha smiled politely. Welcome, Your Majesty. Adrian returned the smile. I hope we're not causing trouble. Not at all. I'd like 2 rooms for tonight. Of course. As Martha prepared the keys, Adrian glanced toward the staircase. His wolf became restless again. She was close. Closer than ever before. Marcus noticed. She's here, isn't she? Adrian answered in a low voice. Yes. Marcus smiled. So, are you finally going to meet her? Adrian looked upstairs for a long moment before replying. Not today. Marcus blinked in surprise. You've waited years for your mate, and now you're walking away? Adrian gave a faint smile. If fate brought her here, it can wait one more day. I want our first conversation to happen because she feels safe, not because she's running from someone else. Marcus nodded with quiet admiration. Few kings possessed such patience. Upstairs, Lisa stood by the window once more. She watched David ride away until he disappeared beyond the village gates. Only then did she breathe a sigh of relief. She didn't notice another man standing quietly below, a man who happened to glance up at the same moment. For just an instant, their eyes met again. This time, Adrian offered a small, reassuring smile. There was no pity in his expression, no arrogance, only kindness. Lisa, surprised by the unexpected gesture, gave the slightest nod before stepping back from the window. Neither of them spoke. But for the first time since her world fell apart, Lisa felt that looking into someone's eyes didn't have to bring pain. The village settled into silence as night slowly covered the streets. Inside her room, Lisa sat beside the window, watching the lanterns outside flicker in the gentle breeze. She couldn't stop thinking about everything that had happened that day. David had found her, yet he hadn't forced his way upstairs. For a brief moment, she almost believed he had changed. But then she remembered his words inside the cabin. Lisa was only useful until I became Alpha. Those words still echoed in her heart. She closed her eyes. No. I won't go back. Not ever again. Across the hallway, King Adrian stood on the balcony outside his room. The cool night air carried a familiar scent. His wolf stirred again. She's close. Adrian smiled faintly. I know. Marcus stepped onto the balcony, carrying 2 cups of hot tea. I've never seen you this distracted. Adrian accepted one of the cups. I've waited years for my mate. I imagined this moment countless times. Marcus laughed softly, and none of those moments happened in a village inn. Adrian smiled. No, they didn't. Marcus became serious. What if she's already mated? Adrian remained silent for several seconds. Finally, he answered. I don't believe she is. I can sense pain, but I don't sense a completed mate bond. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. If fate brought her to you, then tomorrow may change everything. The next morning, Lisa woke before sunrise. She had barely slept. After washing her face and arranging her hair, she went downstairs to help Martha prepare breakfast for the guests. You don't have to work, Martha said. Lisa smiled. I know, but I want to. Together they arranged bread, fresh fruit, tea, and warm soup on the dining tables. Before long, guests began coming downstairs. Among them, King Adrian. Lisa looked up as he entered the dining room. Unlike the day before, he wasn't surrounded by guards. He wore simple dark clothing instead of royal robes. If someone didn't know who he was, They might have mistaken him for an ordinary traveler. Adrian noticed Lisa arranging fresh flowers on one of the tables. He walked over slowly. "Good morning." Lisa looked up. "Good morning, Your Majesty." "You don't have to call me that." Lisa looked surprised. "I don't?" He smiled politely. "Not unless we're attending a royal ceremony." Lisa couldn't help smiling. "I'll try to remember." There was a brief silence. Adrian glanced at the flowers. "You arranged those beautifully." Lisa looked at the small vase. "My mother loved flowers. She used to say they remind us that even after storms, beautiful things can still grow." Adrian nodded. "She sounds like a wise woman." Lisa's smile faded slightly. She was. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Adrian said gently, "I hope you don't mind me asking. Are you traveling alone?" Lisa hesitated. She wasn't ready to tell a stranger everything. "Yes." Adrian noticed the hesitation. He didn't ask another question. Instead, he simply said, "I hope wherever you're going, you find the peace you're searching for." Those words caught Lisa off guard. Most people would have asked for details, demanded explanations. He didn't. "Thank you," she replied sincerely. At that moment, Martha called from the kitchen. "Lisa, could you give me a hand?" "I'll be right there." Lisa nodded politely to Adrian before walking away. Adrian watched her disappear into the kitchen. Marcus, who had been observing from another table, walked over with a grin. "You've barely spoken 10 sentences to her." Adrian smiled. "I wasn't trying to impress her." Marcus folded his arms. "No, you were trying not to scare her." Adrian laughed quietly. "She's been through enough. I won't become another burden." Marcus looked toward the kitchen door. "Then you'll need patience." Adrian nodded. "I have all the time in the world." Later that afternoon, Lisa finished helping Martha clean the dining room. She stepped outside to enjoy the fresh air. The village square was lively once again. Children laughed as they chased one another around the fountain. Merchants called out to passing customers. Musicians played cheerful tunes near the market stalls. For the first time in many days, Lisa felt herself smiling without forcing it. She walked slowly toward a flower stall. A little girl, no older than 7, struggled to carry a basket filled with apples. Before Lisa could react, the basket slipped from the child's hands. Apples rolled across the street. "Oh no!" the little girl cried. Lisa immediately knelt to help. "It's all right. We'll pick them up together." Just then, another pair of hands reached for one of the apples. Lisa looked up. It was Adrian. Without a word, he helped gather every apple until the basket was full again. The little girl beamed. "Thank you." Adrian smiled warmly. "You're welcome." The little girl hugged the basket tightly before running back to her mother. Lisa looked at Adrian. "You didn't have to help." He shrugged lightly. "It only took a moment." Lisa smiled. "So did your kindness." For the first time, their conversation felt natural. Neither of them realized that from across the street, a familiar pair of eyes had witnessed everything. David had returned to the village, and the sight of Lisa smiling beside another man stirred a feeling he had never expected. Jealousy remained hidden across the street, standing beside a blacksmith shop where no one would easily notice him. His eyes never left Lisa. She was smiling. It wasn't the bright smile she used to wear whenever she saw him, but it was enough to make his heart sink. For the first time since she left, she looked peaceful. Ryan walked up beside him. "I told you to go home." David didn't answer. Ryan followed his gaze, and finally noticed the tall man standing beside Lisa. His expression changed immediately. "That's—" David nodded slowly. "The Alpha King." Ryan looked at him in disbelief. "How is she standing beside the Alpha King?" "I don't know, but I don't like it." Ryan sighed. "You have no right to like or dislike it anymore. David lowered his eyes. Ryan was right. The moment he chose Emily over Lisa, he had lost the right to complain about whoever stood beside her. Still, watching another man make her smile felt like punishment. Lisa and Adrian continued walking through the marketplace. Neither seemed uncomfortable with the silence. Eventually, Adrian broke it. "How long do you plan to stay in the village?" Lisa looked ahead. "I'm not sure. I haven't decided where to go next." "Do you have family waiting for you?" Lisa smiled sadly. "My parents passed away years ago." "I'm sorry." She nodded. "I've learned to live with it." Adrian noticed she had avoided mentioning anyone else. He respected her silence. Everyone carried wounds they weren't ready to reveal. "You don't have to answer every question," he said gently. Lisa looked at him, surprised. "I know. But thank you for understanding." They reached the small stone bridge that crossed the stream outside the village. The water flowed gently beneath them. Lisa rested her hands on the wooden railing. "This place is beautiful." Adrian looked at the flowing water. "It reminds me that no matter how many rocks stand in its way, the river always finds a path forward." Lisa smiled. "Mother used to say something similar. Maybe that's why I like it here." For a brief moment, neither of them noticed the world around them. Back in Shadow Fang Pack, Emily grew restless. David had been gone for 2 days. He ignored her messages. He ignored her visits. He ignored everyone. Finally, she marched into the Alpha's office. David's father looked up from a stack of documents. "Emily, have you heard from David?" He left to look for Lisa. Emily's face hardened. "He's still searching?" The Alpha nodded. "He blames himself." Emily forced a weak smile. "He'll come back eventually." The Alpha leaned back in his chair. "I hope so. He has responsibilities here." Emily quietly excused herself. The moment she stepped outside, her smile disappeared. "If David won't forget Lisa, I'll make sure Lisa never comes back." That evening, the village held its weekly market festival. Colorful lanterns lit the streets. Music echoed from every corner. Families gathered to celebrate another successful harvest. Martha walked into the dining room, carrying 2 folded pieces of cloth. "Lisa." Lisa looked up. "Yes, I have 2 tickets for tonight's festival. I can't leave the inn. Would you mind using one of them?" Lisa hesitated. "I don't think," Martha interrupted with a smile. "You've spent days worrying. You deserve one peaceful evening." Lisa finally nodded. "Thank you." Just then, Adrian entered the inn with Marcus. Martha's eyes brightened. "Your Majesty, I have another ticket." Marcus immediately grinned. "I suddenly remembered I promised to inspect the royal horses tonight." Adrian glanced at him knowingly. "You just remembered?" Marcus smiled innocently. "Yes, very suddenly." Without waiting for permission, he handed his ticket to Adrian and walked away. "Nop." Martha laughed softly. "I believe that solves the problem." Lisa looked slightly embarrassed. "I don't want to trouble His Majesty." Adrian smiled. "It wouldn't be trouble either, if you're comfortable with it." Lisa thought for a moment. Then she nodded. "I'd like that." As darkness settled over the village, the festival came alive. Lanterns glowed in shades of gold and crimson. Musicians played cheerful melodies, while children danced around the central fountain. The aroma of roasted meat, sweet pastries, and fresh herbs filled the air. Lisa looked around in amazement. "It's beautiful." Adrian watched her rather than the festival. "I'm glad you came." They strolled through the decorated streets, stopping at different stalls. An elderly artist offered to sketch visitors. The old man smiled at them. "You two make a wonderful couple." Lisa immediately looked away, her cheeks turning pink. "We're not." She stopped before finishing the sentence. Adrian simply smiled. We've only recently met. The artist laughed. Sometimes the best stories begin that way. Lisa couldn't help smiling. For the first time in what felt like forever, she laughed. A genuine laugh. One that came from her heart. Across the crowded square, David witnessed the moment. His chest tightened. He remembered all the times Lisa had begged him to attend village festivals with her. He had always been too busy, too distracted, too proud. Now, another man was giving her the time he never had. David finally understood something that no apology could change. He hadn't just lost Lisa because of one terrible mistake. He had been losing her, little by little, every time he failed to value her. And now, someone else was showing her exactly what she had deserved all along. The festival continued late into the night. Lanterns swayed gently above the streets as music echoed through the village. Laughter filled the air, and for the first time in days, Lisa allowed herself to enjoy the moment. She and Adrian stopped at a small stall where an elderly couple sold handmade bracelets. The old woman smiled warmly. "This one would suit the young lady," she said, holding up a simple silver bracelet with a tiny wolf engraved on it. Lisa admired it. "It's beautiful," she said. Before she could ask the price, Adrian quietly placed a few silver coins on the table. The old woman handed Lisa the bracelet. "It's yours." Lisa immediately looked at Adrian. "No, I can't let you buy it." Adrian smiled. "Consider it a thank you." "For what?" "For helping that little girl this afternoon." Lisa laughed softly. "I didn't do anything special." "You did. You helped without expecting anything in return." Lisa looked down at the bracelet before fastening it around her wrist. "Thank you." Not far away, David watched everything. Every smile, every conversation, every moment. His heart grew heavier with each passing second. Ryan stood beside him. "Let's leave." David shook his head. "I can't." "You should." "No." Ryan sighed. "If you keep watching, you'll only hurt yourself." David answered quietly, "I deserve it." The music suddenly stopped. A loud voice echoed across the square. "Attention, everyone." The village chief stepped onto a small wooden stage. "As part of tonight's celebration, we'd like to thank our royal guests." Everyone applauded. The chief bowed respectfully toward Adrian. "It is an honor to welcome the Alpha King to our village." The crowd cheered. Adrian gave a polite nod. "I appreciate your kindness." The chief smiled. "We have one more tradition. Our honored guest is invited to say a few words." The villagers clapped again. Adrian stepped onto the stage. He looked across the smiling faces gathered before him. "My people, I've traveled through many villages. I've seen strength. I've seen courage. But tonight, I've also been reminded that true greatness isn't measured by power. It's measured by kindness. The smallest act of kindness can completely change someone's life." The villagers applauded. Lisa smiled quietly. His words reminded her of Mr. Henry and Martha. Without their kindness, she didn't know where she would be. Adrian continued, "I hope every one of you leaves this festival remembering that." The applause grew louder. David lowered his head. Those words pierced his heart. He had chosen selfishness instead of kindness. Now he was paying the price. As the crowd slowly dispersed, David made a decision. "I have to talk to her." Ryan grabbed his arm. "David, no, I won't let another day pass." He walked toward Lisa. She noticed him immediately. The smile faded from her face. Adrian quietly stepped back, giving them space. David stopped a few feet away. "Lisa." She looked at him calmly. "What do you want?" I came to apologize. You already said that. I know. But I need you to hear everything. Lisa folded her arms. David took a deep breath. I was selfish, he admitted. I betrayed your trust. I hurt the one person who loved me most. He paused. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know I regret everything. Lisa remained silent. David continued. Every hour since you left, I've wished I could go back and change what happened. Tears filled his eyes. I was a fool. Lisa looked at him for several moments. Then she finally spoke. You know what hurt the most? David swallowed. It wasn't catching you with Emily. Lisa continued. It was hearing you say, Lisa was only useful until I became Alpha. David closed his eyes, ashamed. I know. You didn't just betray me. You made me feel worthless. I loved you with everything I had, and you treated that love like it meant nothing. David couldn't lift his head. No excuse. Only guilt. Lisa took one slow step backward. I accept your apology. David looked up hopefully. But accepting your apology doesn't mean I can trust you again. His hope disappeared instantly. Our story ended the moment you chose someone else. Please, don't follow me anymore. With those words, Lisa turned and walked away. David remained standing where he was. He finally understood. Some doors, once closed, could never be reopened. Adrian caught up with Lisa a short distance away. You handled that with dignity. Lisa let out a slow breath. It wasn't easy. I know. She looked toward the night sky. I thought I'd feel better after hearing him apologize. And I just felt free. A gentle smile appeared on Adrian's face. Then perhaps tonight wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. Lisa looked at him. For the first time since leaving Shadow Fang Pack, she believed he might be right. The morning after the festival, Lisa woke feeling lighter than she had in weeks. For the first time since leaving Shadow Fang Pack, she no longer carried the burden of unanswered questions. David had apologized, and she had finally spoken the words she had kept inside her heart. She knew there was no going back. After getting dressed, she walked downstairs to help Martha prepare breakfast. You seem happier today, Martha said with a smile. Lisa nodded. I finally closed a chapter of my life. Martha gently squeezed her hand. Then it's time to begin a new one. Lisa smiled. Back at Shadow Fang Pack, Emily paced nervously inside her room. She had received a message from one of the warriors David had hired to search for Lisa. The message contained only one sentence. Lisa has been found in Oak Ridge Village. Emily crumpled the paper in her hand. So that's where you ran. Without wasting another minute, she packed a small bag and left the pack before sunrise. If David saw Lisa again, everything she had worked for would fall apart. She couldn't allow that. Meanwhile, King Adrian was preparing to leave the village. Marcus entered his room. The horses are ready. Marcus hesitated. Are you truly leaving? Adrian smiled. I promised the council I would return. Marcus laughed. And your mate? Adrian looked toward the window. I'll ask her to travel with us. If she refuses, I'll respect her decision. Marcus nodded approvingly. That's why fate chose you. A short while later, Lisa stepped outside the inn, carrying her small travel bag. She intended to thank Martha and Mr. Henry before deciding where to go next. As she reached the front steps, Adrian approached. Good morning. Lisa smiled. Good morning, Adrian replied. I hear you're leaving. So are you. He nodded. Yes. There was a brief silence. Finally, Adrian spoke. I have a question. Lisa looked at him. Would you consider traveling with me to the royal capital? She blinked in surprise. The capital? You don't have to answer immediately. But you'll be safe there, and if you wish to leave afterward, I won't stop you. Lisa lowered her eyes. Everything had happened so quickly. Only a few days ago, she believed her life was over. Now the Alpha King himself was offering her a new beginning. Before she could answer, a familiar voice interrupted. Don't believe him. Everyone turned. Emily hurried into the square, breathing heavily. Her clothes were covered in dust from the long journey. She pointed directly at Lisa. She's lying to you. Lisa froze. Emily? Emily ignored her. She looked at Adrian instead. Your Majesty, my sister isn't who you think she is. Marcus frowned. And who is she? Emily answered without hesitation. She abandoned her mate. She betrayed her own pack. Several villagers exchanged confused glances. Lisa stared at her sister in disbelief. You know that's not true. Emily continued speaking as though Lisa hadn't interrupted. She left because she wanted a richer, more powerful man. I came all this way to warn you. The crowd began whispering. Lisa felt her chest tighten. She had expected many things, but not this. Adrian calmly looked at Emily. Are you finished? Emily nodded confidently. Yes, Your Majesty. Adrian's expression remained unchanged. Then he asked one simple question. Witness these events yourself? Emily hesitated. Answer honestly. She swallowed. Not exactly. Adrian turned toward Lisa. Would you like to tell us what happened? Lisa took a deep breath. She looked at Emily. Then she quietly told the truth. How she had prepared dinner for David. How she had gone to surprise him. How she had found him embracing Emily inside his cabin. How they had spoken about her as though she meant nothing. When she finished, the square had fallen completely silent. Emily's face turned pale. At that exact moment, Adrian's voice was calm, yet it carried enough authority to silence the entire square. Enough. The whispers disappeared instantly. No one dared speak. Adrian looked first at Emily, then at David. The truth has revealed itself. There is nothing more to argue about. Emily rushed forward. Your Majesty, please believe me. I only wanted to protect David. David finally turned toward her. Protect me? Emily's eyes filled with tears. I loved you. David slowly shook his head. No. You wanted what Lisa had. Emily's face turned pale. David continued. I destroyed the woman who truly loved me, because I confused selfishness with love. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Emily lowered her head. For the first time, she realized there was nothing left to fight for. She had lost. Not because Lisa defeated her, but because the truth had. The village chief stepped forward. I've known Lisa only a few days, he said. But every person in this village has seen her kindness. Henry nodded. She worked honestly without asking for special treatment. Martha smiled proudly. She treated everyone with respect. The elderly woman from the bakery raised her hand, and she thanked me for 2 pieces of bread as though I had given her a fortune. One by one, the villagers spoke. Each story was simple, yet together they painted a picture of Lisa's true character. Emily could no longer deny it. She quietly stepped backward. Without another word, she turned and walked away. No one stopped her. David walked toward Lisa. He stopped several feet away. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. Lisa remained silent. I just want to thank you. She looked surprised. For what? For loving me when I didn't deserve it. If you hadn't left, I might never have realized the kind of man I had become. Lisa looked into his eyes. For the first time, she saw honesty. Not because he wanted her back, but because he had finally accepted the consequences of his choices. "I hope you become a better man, David." He nodded. "I will. And this time, I'll do it for the right reasons." With that, David bowed respectfully to Adrian. "Your Majesty, I leave her future in your hands." Adrian gave a slight nod. "You have my word." David mounted his horse. Without looking back again, he rode away from the village. Lisa watched until he disappeared beyond the hills. Instead of sadness, she felt peace. The chapter she had struggled to close was finally over. Later that afternoon, Adrian invited Lisa to walk with him beside the river. The gentle sound of flowing water filled the silence between them. After a while, Adrian stopped. "I've wanted to tell you something." Lisa looked at him. "What is it?" He smiled softly. "The first moment I saw you, my wolf recognized you." "What do you mean?" Adrian took a slow breath. "You are my fated mate." Lisa's eyes widened. She had heard stories about fated mates all her life. She had never imagined she would be one. Adrian quickly added, "I don't expect an answer today. I won't force you. I won't pressure you. If you choose another path, I'll respect it." Lisa stared at him. After everything David had done, she expected powerful men to demand, to control, to command. Instead, the strongest alpha in the kingdom was giving her a choice. Tears gathered in her eyes. "You would really let me decide?" Adrian smiled. "Always." Lisa looked toward the river, then toward the bracelet on her wrist, then back at Adrian. "You've shown me more respect in a few days than I received in years. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know how I feel today." Adrian waited patiently. Lisa smiled through her tears. "I'd like to walk that future with you." A genuine smile spread across Adrian's face. For the first time in years, the Alpha King looked simply like a man who had found the person he had been waiting for. 3 months later, the royal palace welcomed visitors from packs across the kingdom. Colorful banners decorated the great hall. Music echoed through every corridor. It was the day of the Alpha King's mating ceremony. Lisa stood before a large mirror, wearing a graceful silver gown. Martha adjusted the final fold of the dress. "You look beautiful." Lisa smiled. "I couldn't have reached this day without you." Martha embraced her warmly. "You were always stronger than you believed." Outside, hundreds of guests gathered in the palace courtyard. Marcus stood beside Adrian with a grin. "You look nervous." Adrian laughed. "I've faced armies without fear, but today, I don't want to keep my mate waiting." The ceremony began. Lisa walked slowly through the palace garden. Every step carried her farther away from the pain of her past, and closer to the future she had chosen. When she reached Adrian, he gently took her hand. Their eyes met. Neither needed words. The High Elder smiled. "Today 2 hearts become one. As witnesses before the Moon Goddess and the United Packs, I declare you mates." The courtyard erupted in applause. Adrian kissed Lisa gently on the forehead. "Welcome home, my Luna." Lisa smiled with tears of joy. For the first time in her life, she understood that sometimes the greatest blessings arrive only after the greatest heartbreak. And from that day forward, the Alpha King and his Luna ruled with wisdom, kindness, and unwavering love. Kindly subscribe so you never miss our daily love stories. Don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts. Stay tuned and keep spreading love.